Hidden in forests and under mountains across Europe are the remains of a top-secret Nazi weapons program.
That's an incredible structure.
A vast network of research labs, launch pads, and missile silos. And a terrifying weapon unlike anything the world had ever seen before.
It could break the sound barrier.
The world's first ballistic missile.
This changes the face of warfare. This changes the history of the modern age.
A total devastation. Complete devastation.
This is the story of a Nazi genius who built cutting-edge bases to create a revolutionary space-age weapon. And the technology that ultimately put men on the moon. The V2 rocket program. The biggest construction projects of World War II. Ordered by Hitler to secure world domination. Now they survive as dark reminders of the Führer's fanatical military ambitions. These are the secrets of the Nazi megastructures. Saturday, the 3rd of October, 1942. A team of Nazi scientists arrive at one of Germany's most secret military installations to launch a completely new kind of weapon. Leading them is Wernher von Braun. At the age of just 30, he's the world's leading rocket scientist. Von Braun's goal is to create the world's first long-range guided missile. A weapon that the Nazis hope will decide the outcome of World War II.
Hauptstufe gegeben, Decker gefallen.
It's broken the sound barrier.
Years ago, this looked completely different.
Rocket scientist and V2 expert Dr. Olaf Schabilski is standing on the very spot where this launch happened more than 70 years ago.
You have to imagine that the trees weren't here. It was all level, partially paved.
This is Peenemünde, a vast Nazi laboratory built to win World War II. In 1942, the Nazis dominate Europe, but the war will soon turn against them. America, Britain, and Russia are fighting back, and Hitler has pinned his hopes on rockets to pound Britain into submission.
In Hitler's mind, this is terror. It's about scaring the population. And he feels that he can frighten Britain with this weapon sufficiently to drive them out of the war.
It was a weapon that had its beginnings over 10 years earlier. In the 1920s, teenage genius von Braun was part of an amateur rocket craze sweeping Germany. This history has fascinated Martin Themar, head of rocketry at Dresden University, all his life.
Rockets became very popular. You had societies forming here in Germany. Young people got together trying to build little rockets.
Rockets were previously fueled by gunpowder. But that meant they were unguided, unpredictable, and only able to travel a few hundred meters. As a weapon, the greatest danger they posed was to the people launching them.
In its early development, rockets were loud. They were certainly colorful and bright and potentially scary for things like cavalry, but they were in no way a significant battlefield weapon.
In the early 1930s, von Braun started working with a new technology, liquid-fueled rockets. A powerful weapon with the potential to travel huge distances. His work catches the attention of the German army. They ask von Braun to demonstrate his latest prototype.
Mr. von Braun. A moment, please.
The launch is a failure. But surprisingly, the military offer him the funding he needs.
What is your ambition?
I want to get on the moon, to build the rocket that will put the first man on the moon. It's possible. We can do it.
And it's all due to Hitler. When he comes to power in the 1930s, he greenlights almost unlimited funding for military projects.
Hitler is fascinated with scale. He wants big, bigger, biggest. He builds his stadium in Nuremberg for his rallies to be the biggest stadium on the earth. He wants to build the biggest motorway system on earth. He wants to build more tanks, more of aircraft than anyone else in the world has. He is absolutely fascinated with scale.
Hitler starts rearming Germany. And in 1935, the Nazis order Werner von Braun to establish the world's first rocket base. A high-tech facility where he can build, test, and launch his most recent designs. It will be the largest weapons lab on Earth, with the highest levels of secrecy. Von Braun's first task is to identify a remote location where the new complex can be hidden from other countries. He selects Peenemünde on the Baltic coast, a wilderness of dunes, marshes, and forests 50 kilometers from the nearest major town. Christian Mühldorfer-Vogt is the leading expert on what remains of the rocket base.
We're entering the research center area, and here was the first checkpoint. There were fences, there were dogs.
Hidden in the forest are the remnants of one of the largest military complexes ever built.
Peenemünde is a location where the modern science was invented, part of the history of mankind.
It's the perfect place to test rockets, for one reason.
The flight had to be documented for the whole time. And so you need a straight coastline.
The coastline, more than 250 kilometers long, could be rigged with cameras to monitor rockets in flight. With the site chosen, work can begin on the missile base itself. In August 1936, over 10,000 workers descend on Peenemünde. Over 25 square kilometers, they build labs for more than 2,000 scientists, missile factories, and launch pads. To keep it all top secret, they plan to design and build everything on site. But this will require a vast amount of electricity. So von Braun builds a power station, burning over 200 tons of coal every day, as rocket physicist Professor Martin Tamar explains.
Well, it's really terrific. It was one of the largest power plants that were built in the late 1930s just to supply a research center. 30 megawatts of power. Most of that was used to make a rocket propellant, liquid oxygen. That gives you unlimited possibilities.
75% of the energy produced goes to a vast liquid oxygen plant that manufactures the vital rocket fuel. As big as a football field, the liquid oxygen factory produces 13,000 kilograms of fuel per day, enough for 3 V2 rockets.
This place was definitely groundbreaking. So you had facilities, you invented facilities that didn't exist before.
The rocket isn't the only scientific marvel. So is the technology required to design it. The site's wind tunnel is the first in the world that can simulate the missile's incredible speed.
Just imagining a supersonic wind tunnel, Mach 4.4 speeds, you couldn't think about such kind of facilities before.
The V weapons development at Peenemünde cost over $30 billion in today's money. By 1938, the facility is operational, and full control is handed to Werner von Braun. But away from the isolation of Peenemünde, events are about to give added urgency to von Braun's work. Hitler is planning to plunge Europe into war.
There are some key people in the German government who see von Braun's rocket development as a potential key weapon in the war that will come.
After investing billions, the army are impatient to get their hands on a working missile. But there's a problem. Von Braun's first prototypes suffer a succession of failures. The engines are underpowered, and he can't control the rockets in flight.
Von Braun was struggling with explosions on the launch pad, off the pad, and in the air.
The timing couldn't be worse. Von Braun has just been ordered to demonstrate his latest engine to the Führer himself. At stake is the future of the entire Nazi rocket program. In March 1939, a group of high-ranking Nazis gather at a top-secret location to watch a test firing of Werner von Braun's latest rocket engine. All eyes are on the Führer.
Mein Führer, we believe that a rocket could reach a speed of 5,000 kilometers per hour in only 30 seconds.
The engine functions perfectly.
Meine Herren, das nächste.
But while Hitler continues funding the project, he refuses to prioritize the weapon.
It may seem surprising that Hitler wasn't interested in something so obviously futuristic and cutting edge, but a strategic rocket force is well beyond what Hitler thinks he needs.
In September 1939, Hitler's armies invade Poland. The Second World War has begun. Within a year, much of Western Europe has been occupied. Hitler's faith in conventional weapons is proved correct.
When Hitler does invade Western Europe, he does it in a matter of weeks, and he does it with, effectively, a conventional army. Tanks, infantry, airplanes operating in cooperation. Why does he need any more strategic weapon? Why does he need rockets?
Undeterred, von Braun continues to push ahead with designing a functional, flying missile. Every test is filmed by a camera crew, and with no computers to simulate launches, the only way to test a rocket is to do it for real.
We're here in the Holy of Holies at Peenemünde. This is where they wanted to prove whether their rockets could fly.
The launch site is surrounded by huge banks of earth and reinforced concrete to protect the scientists.
Ist durchgeschaltet. Rüstung klar, Zündung klar, Vorstufe klar.
The rockets are supposed to take off and fly along the coast, but launches often go dangerously wrong.
This is a fire extinguisher, or rather a hydrant for extinguishing the possible explosion.
The As well as risking lives, every rocket failure destroys thousands of valuable components. So the engineers spend weeks setting up each test.
Before a rocket could be launched, in case thousands of scientists were blown up, it had to be prepared.
The launch pad is in the center. Next to it is an engine test area with a flame pit, faced by a concrete observation bunker. A railway ferries the rockets to the launch pad from a preparation hangar, 9 stories high.
The rockets were hung in a test building. The electrics and electronics were checked. When they were okay, it was ferried on a rail-like runway into the testing area that we see over there. The excitement reached its climax just before the rocket was launched, when the relays were laid out and one hoped that it would be successful.
But success is proving elusive. In the summer of 1942, there is a series of V2 rocket test failures.
It was a step-by-step and trial and error. It was a very difficult task. Examining all the remaining parts, so you check for every piece of evidence to identify the specific cause of the failure.
Von Braun has 2 major technical problems to solve. The first problem is creating an engine that can power a 13-ton rocket more than 4 times the speed of sound, carrying enough fuel to travel a distance of nearly 200 kilometers.
Well, it seems like the rocket goes up very steep and everything seems to look okay, but it seems like probably there's a premature engine cutoff.
The extreme heat produced by burning fuel is damaging the engine. Von Braun's solution is to pump the fuel through a double skin around the engine. The colder fuel extracts enough heat to keep the engine functioning. Von Braun's next problem is keeping the rocket stable and on course once in the air.
As you can see, first the rocket takes off, looks okay, but then immediately you see how it starts to roll and tumble. So it seems like there is a guidance and navigation problem. It goes off in the wrong direction.
At the time, there is no way to steer a rocket from the ground. So, to keep the V2 on course, Von Braun gets the rockets to steer themselves using gyroscopes and a series of rudders. After years of research, Von Braun finally believes he has a rocket that will work.
Die Steuerung klar ist klar. Triebwerk klar ist klar.
Saturday, the 3rd of October, 1942. Von Braun and his army paymasters await the launch of his latest prototype missile.
Hauptstufe! Hauptstufe gegeben! Lenker gefallen!
It's broken the sound barrier.
Very good.
Yes, but will it reach the target?
is what we've done! The spaceship is born!